How important is winning in business? You probably heard that you should win all the time, no matter if it's on a leadership position or on a project or on recruiting. Win, win, win. Winning all over the place. And that's exactly the situation we're in right now. When you say you win all the time, in recruiting, it means you hire the people you want to have, and they always need to say yes. When you talk to someone, you always get it right or you get it your way. In leadership, of course, it's the same. Is that the right attitude you should have towards work? As I received quite a number of emails from people who talked about this winning attitude, we need to deal with it. We need to talk about that. And the perception we have right now is that winning needs to be omnipresent. You need to win pretty much anywhere. As a leader, you get it your way. Every project is a success. It's always a massive success. Or if it's not a massive success, there are great learnings in there. In recruiting, you always win the best talent. And I often hear the phrase, runner-up doesn't pay the rent. That might be correct when it comes to, for example, pitching your business. When you pitch your business and someone else gets the deal, runner-up really doesn't pay the rent here. However, can you conclude that always winning is the right attitude, or that leaders always have the winning mindset, or however you want to call it? Especially motivational, inspirational speakers love to talk about how to win and how important winning is. Looking at the facts, it is a quite difficult point of view. It's a quite differentiated situation. You really need to take a close look what the facts say here. And let's listen to Dr. Keltner. Dr. Keltner is a scientist. He's the lead psychologist professor at the University of California, Berkeley, a top 25 university worldwide. And he could prove that winning itself does not make you happy, because many people expect that when you win, something changes and you need external validation. The problem is that when you constantly need external validation, that, from a scientific point of view, is the path to unhappiness. And by the way, it also leads or has certain side effects. It leads to a certain behavior. Maybe you remember moments either in your business or your organization where people say, oh, we had such a great project. And when you look back, you think it wasn't great at all. We had lots of errors, lots of issues. Why do we suddenly have to portray everything positively, even when it was not? There's no shame in saying that project didn't go too well. We're happy it's over. And here are our learnings. When you, for example, win business, but you know from the very beginning, and by the way, this is often due to leadership pressure. Someone says, we need to get that deal. So even when you do not make a profit, you get the deal signed, and afterwards you lose money, but you celebrate that you got the deal. The definition of winning often is not clear. So people just try to copy behavior from other people who are already there, already in the business. We need to take a closer look how to do it better. So first, of course, you need to define the goal. And the first thing you do when you need to define a goal, as most people know, it's make it measurable, or at least as measurable as you can. Talking about KPIs, the numbers game, the key performance indicators. People are obsessed with key performance indicators, and first, for a very good reason. KPIs are tremendously useful. However, often I see that KPIs are used in a very superficial way. So when, for example, someone says they have a revenue goal for their business, I sometimes wonder if they were deep asleep during the financial part of their education, because revenue doesn't tell you anything about how healthy a company is. You can even raise revenue at the same time lose money. So you need to know about what are the KPIs you look at. For example, is it revenue? Is it profit? Is it employee turnover, for example? You can win on certain KPIs, but lose more than you win on others. And by the way, when you have a KPI, always be aware that when you self-design KPIs, you need 2, 4, 6, 8, at least 2 people looking at the KPIs, telling you the weaknesses. I give you a practice example that happened in one of the projects where I was an interim manager. They told me, projects here are evaluated, and we have the so-called performance index. And the performance index needs to be in between X and Y. They told me 2 numbers. Then the project is exactly in the sweet spot, in the right spot where it should be. And I asked, can I ask for the formula, how this is calculated? And they, of course, happily offered it to me. And I have to say about 95% of this formula was brilliant. Many things were taken into consideration. However, one thing was quite surprising to me. I only saw one aspect of people being absent, which was held against the performance index. And I ask why there's only one way of being absent. There's a massive difference if people either are on business travel and that's why they can't be on the project, or if they are sick, short term or long term, or for example, if someone is pregnant or has family situation, completely different aspects that you cannot all wrap up with just saying absent. So I ask if this is an error or this is designed deliberately. And I was thoroughly surprised when a senior leader on the board of directors told me that this is what they wanted. This is by design. They said, we don't care why you're not there. When you're not there, you're not there. We don't care why. And that, again, surprise, surprise, discriminates against women and minorities. And of course, when I looked into the different projects, you hardly had, especially when you looked at projects in which people were picked to be part of project teams, hardly anyone picked women, because especially younger women, and when I interviewed them, they openly admitted that this is a side effect. And then after a long time of convincing, they were convinced to act on it. Because when you say there's only one way of absent, or only one approach to absenteeism, or one approach to being absent in the so-called performance index, what people, of course, did, they didn't pick younger women because they said there's a higher risk of them being pregnant. They didn't pick anyone over the age of 50 if they could avoid it by all costs, because there's a higher risk of you being sick. And when, of course, you say you just select to having a bunch of male singles, then, of course, you shouldn't be surprised that you don't get the best results. And especially when you have a product to sell to a diverse market, you need diverse teams. Otherwise, you do not understand what the client actually wants from you. So the KPIs here became an obsession, which led to a very unhealthy way. By the way, the same applies when you, for example, say we need a certain recruiting percentage. So, for example, we have a recruiting department and they need to hire X, Y, Z, that amount of managers per quarter or per year. I was part of a project where recruiting was under significant pressure by senior leaders, where they said, next quarter, you need to present to us one massive talent that will be hired on senior executive level. And they hired someone who had great credential when it came to business results, wasn't a cultural fit at all, showed misconduct very, very early. All warning signs were ignored, and it ended with an internal investigation, and the person was fired at the end of it. So just forcing KPIs to be where they should be, people always find a way to make KPIs look like they were exactly where they should be. They almost always find a way. So be sure that you deal with KPIs in the right way. But you need more than KPIs. You need CSFs, the so-called critical success factors. I give you an example. When you say, hey, we reached our revenue goal, besides the fact that you should always have revenue and profit, but that's a different story. And then I hear, we reached our revenue goal, but, sales was really challenging with recruiting this year. People are so weak. When you put a bit of pressure on them, they all leave. So we have about 80% turnover in our sales team. So amazing, you can take your revenue, and if you have any profit left, you can spend all of that profit on recruiting measures or to repair your employer branding. So the critical success factors are the soft factors, things that you cannot measure exactly, but that are crucially important to the success of your business or your organization. Be sure that you have both. It also means that leaders have to give regular updates, and the updates should not be a pep talk or any kind of motivational, inspirational story. The pep talk needs to be something where they can prove, where they can last under pressure and even get challenges from the employees when they have questions, and they can answer these questions. And all these goals need to be adaptable. When you see we're going the wrong way, you need to be able to change or adapt to the new situation and still reach the goal, at least partially, which you set in the first place. So when you only say you use SMART, which is a system that very quickly comes up as soon as you talk about goals, SMART is not enough. We use SMART Plus today. You're ambitious. You do not only use realistic but ambitious goals, which, by the way, is not an excuse to make up completely surreal goals. But if you only use realistic goals, believe me, you stop. I am quoting from Harvard Business School publications here. When you only use, for example, realistic goals, you prevent excellence from happening. Excellence happens, and people were interviewed who used SMART, and when the project went well and they were asked, do you think you could have delivered more? The vast majority of people said, yeah, I think we did really well, but I think we could have done better if we tried a bit harder. So instead of SMART, use SMART Plus. Add a bit more, be a bit more ambitious. However, leaders always need to be capable and able to present what they've done so far, where they are. The leaders we do not need. We need leaders who are actively engaged in projects on different levels. We need their knowledge, their experience. Lead by example. Be committed. Show management commitment in the projects that are there. The leaders we do not need are the ones who are just there for a pep talk in the very beginning during the kickoff. Then they just move away. So they're unavailable. There's no management commitment, but sometimes they just play peekaboo and then they suddenly put their head in the department and say, hey, is everything on time, on track, on target, but within or under the budget? And they do that regularly. In worst case, by the way, micromanaging the whole project. We do not need these leaders. We need leaders who show active management commitment. So wrapping this all up, true winning is more than simply agreeing on goals and how you reach these goals, hopefully in a legal and legitimate way. And when you look into different industries, the legal was stretched quite far or violated in quite a number of cases in free enterprise recently. So be sure that winning is more than just agreeing on a goal and how to achieve it. Maybe you heard of the phrase and people say, the way is the goal, or the path is the goal. That's not a motivational, inspirational phrase, but the way of happiness. You need to feel happiness on the way of achieving a goal. Maybe you know these moments, and I find it quite striking that just recently on German TV they had a documentary about professional e-gamers, people who do gaming for living. And one of these e-gamers said that he thought when he becomes world champion in a certain game, his whole life will change. And then he became world champion and he said absolutely nothing changed. It just felt empty. You suddenly were a world champion. He retired from the sports to only return back. And in the interview, he said, when he retired, he said, I need to stop and find something else. And I hope I find something else that makes me that happy. I hope this game is not the only thing I can do properly. And he returned back to the game a year later. And you see, this probably is a feeling which is not too comfortable. It is very important that you see that the path to reaching a goal, you need to feel that happiness on the way there. When you say, oh, it's all just agony, and you hope that happiness comes once it's ticked off the box, you might be relieved, but you don't feel happiness. That is something completely different. Winning is important when it comes to pitching business. There's no question about that. But you need to feel the happiness on the way to reach attractive goals that you actually want to reach. And I wish you all the best doing so. And if you now say, whoa, that was tougher than I thought, I know it is, because many people just think that winning is always right, but winning is not everything in business. It's important, but it's not everything, especially when you want to run a business sustainably. If you now like to have a chat or you have any kind of open aspects where you say, hey, I have some questions here, just drop me an email. nb@nb-networks.com is my email address. I put the email address in the show notes of this podcast as well. I also put in there my LinkedIn, so feel free to connect on there as well. I'm looking forward to hearing from you there. Always happy to hear from you or receive any kind of feedback or topic ideas if you have anything on your mind where you say this might be interesting for others as well. The second aspect, which I always recommend, because some people ask, oh, are there published articles which I can forward, or do you have live sessions? Yes, we do. When you go to expert.nb-networks.com, when you sign up there with your email address, you only receive one email every Wednesday morning. It's 100% content at free guarantee. And every Wednesday morning, you receive access with no charge. It's free of charge for all our listeners and readers to everything I published, podcasts, articles, and more. And we have live sessions, and we only announce these live sessions via the means of the leadership letter. So we're looking forward to seeing you there. The last aspect is the most important one, and it's the one I always recommend most. Apply what you heard in this podcast, because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive change that you actually want to see. I wish you all the best doing so. Let me know if you need any help. I'm available 24/7. And at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.